The Scars of Eden, Chapter 13, Beginning to Remember. Canberra, Australia, May 2020. I respect what you're saying, Paul, and it's quite interesting as well. All three of the things you said from when you were 20. It is a pleasure for me to talk with a researcher as diligent, highly intelligent, and grounded as Richard Dolan. He is a gentleman, very gracious and polite, but is certainly not one to go along with flights of speculation and non-evidenced arguments. We are talking about the recent disclosures from the Pentagon, U.S. Department of Defense, the Navy, etc. The official acknowledgement of metamaterials is in the news, for those paying attention. So, we have been drilling down into those topics. Now we're on to more personal territory. The appearance of the entities in your room, I understand that it was a very clear vision that you had, so that you were quite sure that you were not dreaming, and that is why you are sharing it now. This is a story that other people have told me, both as children and as adults. I am eager to bounce off an expert my own flashbacks, of whatever they were, those mystifying moments which had been accompanying me on my journey to escaping from Eden. Richard compares what I have shared with him to the story of another experiencer in his circle. In one case that I know very, very well, it was three entities that were in a doorway. This person at the time was about 11 years of age. She saw silhouetted three entities in the doorway of her bedroom. The hall light was on, so she had the silhouetted vision, and she was adamant she was awake. It was not a dream. She closed her eyes and wanted them to go away. She opened her eyes, and they were still there. This happened several times, and then she lost her memory. She woke the next morning with a triangular series of pinpricks on her wrist. Like you, she always assumed it was some kind of demonic or spiritual thing. It was only many years later that she wondered, wait a minute, was that an ET visitation? And in your case, with that experience of missing time around the same period, it's a natural thing to wonder. I think about the pattern of that encounter. The girl saw strange beings for just a few moments, and then she didn't know what happened next. Next thing, she woke up with a scar. It reminds me of Dean and his landscaping crew who saw a craft, then lost 2 hours, with one waking up to find creepy markings on her arm. This phenomenon of remembering only a few fragmentary moments and then not knowing what happened next, I wonder if it is a widely recurring story. Barbara Lamb says yes. In fact, it was a massive correlation of patterns just like that which first got the attention of this grounded, mild-mannered, and gracious psychotherapist. It sent her on a journey of discovery, which in time was to transform her life and work. San Diego, Southern California, August 2020. Barbara Lamb is a licensed psychotherapist whose work in relationship, family, and child therapy goes back more than 40 years. In 1991, a young lady came to see her as a client with a disturbing and embarrassing problem she needed to discuss. She had previously been living independently and was enjoying her life of study as a university undergraduate. Now she had moved back in with her parents and was so terrified of something that she could only sleep in her parents' bed. It was her parents who drew a line and took the initiative to seek out some therapy. By one of those strange synchronicities the universe offers us from time to time, the young lady's mother bumped into Barbara in a bookstore and recognized her as a regression therapist. This was the encounter that drew Barbara into the case. Once in her counseling room, Barbara gave the young lady some exercises to help her get into a state of deep relaxation. As she spoke, memories which her mind had buried in its subconscious began to re-emerge. The memories involved nighttime visits from non-human entities who would take her somewhere, examine her, and then return her to her room. Prior to her first session with Barbara, the young lady had only been able to recall the first few seconds of each encounter. The rest had been a blank. What she had remembered was enough to leave her terrified. Thankfully, there is a happy ending to the story. After 6 sessions, the young lady returned to tell Barbara that she felt relaxed and happy and was reconciled to the strange encounters, which she now accepted had left her unharmed. Her demeanor was so changed and her recovery of confidence so complete that she and her boyfriend had agreed upon a rural home out in the wilderness without any anxiety over the retrieved memories. That was the beginning of my experiences of working with people recovering memories of extraterrestrial encounters. The method Barbara employed to help her young client and all those who followed with similar memories was very close to that of her friend and colleague, Professor John Mack, head of Harvard's Department of Clinical Psychology. John used a discipline of controlled conscious breathing to enable his clients to achieve a state of deep relaxation. He would then invite them to go back in their minds to the first moments they could recall of the encounter in question and ask them what could they see. During each client's report of what they were seeing, hearing, and feeling, he would invite them to look to the left or up, down, or to the right and tell them what they could see. It was on their answers to these supplementary questions that Professor Mack began to notice an inexplicable correlation of incidental details. Inexplicable, that is, unless they had all been in similar places and seen similar things. It was these correlations that drew the professor further into the rabbit hole to take a closer look. Barbara was one of the many academics and clinical practitioners who wrote letters of support to the board at Harvard when they started putting pressure on him for his conclusions. John and I were really good friends. Barbara beams at the memory of him. We really understood each other's work and had lots of discussions about that. In many ways, my work was very similar to his. I was already doing this kind of work out on the West Coast, and he was doing his on the East Coast. After 1991, people started coming with the complaint that they had been visited by very unusual beings in the night and were taken away for a while. They usually were very upset and even traumatized by this, and were at a point in life where they would like to know more details about that, and especially know if their experience was really real. For many who are regressed, there is a feeling of relief that they now know, after many decades in some cases. They have wondered about those peculiar experiences that they have remembered just a very few moments of, and they have carried that mystery, that unease with them in all that time since. So when they finally come and do a regression and get the validation that they lived through the experience, there's a certain sense of relief they feel. Whatever was buried in the subconscious part of their mind is now known to them consciously, and that means they can work with it, adjust to it. I asked Barbara exactly how many of her clients have reported experiences like these in the 30 years since that first experiencer crossed her threshold. Oh boy, now that's more than 2,000. Barbara Lamb has built up an almost unparalleled clinical record of cases of experiencers of abduction. Since publishing Escaping from Eden, the mix of clients who find my website and come to me for personal coaching has shifted seismically. And like Barbara, I am privileged to have sat with many as they process their own anomalous experiences. Some of the experiences I hear related are decades old. Such is the power of taboo to keep us silent. Some months I hear such reports every week. Some weeks it is every day. This work has set me on a steep learning curve. In this potentially disorienting territory, it is my knowledge of world mythologies that keeps me grounded and offers me insights to help bring context and understanding to our conversations. It is a deeply painful thing to carry the memory of an experience you don't understand. The moment you can understand what happened or why it may have happened, the sense of relief is profound, even if the experience has left questions and uncertainties. You might wonder what that gets us. If we can arrive at the point of accepting that this contact or that abduction really happened, what does that mean? What's it about? Why would extraterrestrial beings be interested in semi-covert contact with human beings? Why would they be interested in abducting human beings? Why could another similar species wish to hybridize with us? To a 21st century mind, it may seem a far-fetched proposition, and yet as we have seen on our journey around the world, the hybridization narrative is probably the most widely recurring theme in our world mythologies of paleo contact. When I began probing the book of Genesis for signs of an ET presence, the hybridization story from Genesis 6 was the one potentially extraterrestrial story I already knew about. The world knows this story from Greek, Norse, Indian, Chinese, and Celtic folklore, and of course from the Welsh, Filipino, Caribbean, and African cultures that have curated stories in the lineage of Mamiwata. One thing which has surprised me on my journey of discovery, though, is the caliber of researchers willing to nail their colors to the mast and say they believe it is happening right now. Canberra, Australia, May 2020. As I compare notes with a grounded researcher of the caliber of Richard Dolan, I am surprised at how openly he is willing to make the following admission. The hybridization program, the program to extract genetic material from us, I think is probably very widespread. That could mean a lot of people contributing to the program. A few weeks later, as we talk on camera, Barbara Lamb unpacks what a lot might mean. I think there are millions of people worldwide who have been having these encounter experiences. Most probably only know a little bit about it and wonder about it and may be quite troubled about it. They can easily wonder about their own sanity, which of course adds greatly to their distress. It's an awful feeling to think that you're alone in something so peculiar that you have no one to turn to. It is a peculiar kind of narrative, and no doubt about that. I asked Barbara what she thinks might be the motivations behind the kind of hybridization program evidenced by ancient mythology and by the lore of today's experiencers and researchers. A lot of that has come up in the work I have done. All in all, there are about 15 reasons that have been given to my clients by the beings they encountered. The reason that was given the most frequently is that those species of extraterrestrials who were creating hybrids were species who had come to a point where they realized that their species was having great difficulty in reproducing the next generation. Their civilization was in the process of slowly dying out, and they wanted to rescue their species. They realized that they had to combine with some other sort of species in order to survive. Another species had gotten to know about human beings from afar and liked some of our characteristics. Though puzzled by them, they liked the fact of our emotions. Most of those species are very low in the component of emotion or have no emotional reactions at all. They're just not constructed that way, and they have noticed that humans enjoy a whole variety of emotions which make their lives interesting, colorful, and creative. They respect that humans have a whole panoply of artistic expressions which make our lives stimulating and interesting, and they like the look of that. Also, many of the beings have a very frail body form. They are very developed mentally, but with weaker bodies. So one of the things about humans that they like and want to combine with is our more robust physicality. All that Barbara says brings to my memory an intriguing verse from the Bible. It is in the sentence in Genesis 6 that introduces the episode of alien abduction and hybridization by the B'nai Elohim. As the human population on earth grew, producing daughters, ones like the powerful ones, B'nai Elohim, saw how beautiful the human females were. They chose whichever of the women they wanted and took them. The children they bore were the Nephilim, the powerful people, the ones of legend. Genesis 6:2 and 5b. Evidently, there was something about human beings that these ones like the powerful ones found especially beautiful. I wonder if the beauty that attracted them was more than skin deep. What Barbara says about love and creativity makes sense to me. And the Genesis story tells us that the result of this combination of species was a stronger, more robust kind of being. I don't find it hard to believe that there is something special about humanity, the unique fusion of animal strength, mammalian emotion, and higher intelligence that makes human consciousness something rare and special, and which might very well excite the interest of others in a populated universe. We only have to compare humans to every other species on this planet to appreciate that there is something awesome about the unique fusion of the human condition. There is both a finesse to animal consciousness and a uniqueness to human consciousness, which, when combined, make for incredible species we are, capable of such love and such beauty. Is it any wonder that other species would see something in us that might attract? Those who contact me for coaching certainly do wonder about it. Young and old, professional people, scholars, technicians, researchers, medics, defense personnel, clergy, every experiencer wonders about what they have experienced as they try to wrap their heads around what has happened to them. They wonder if they have made the right sense of it, if the picture they have formed bears any relation to things others may have experienced or concluded. As Barbara says, it's an awful thing to think you're alone in something. I count it a privilege to be trusted with people's stories. They don't tell me for money, fame, or even attention. They reach out to me because sometimes, even many decades after their encounter or encounters, they still need to process whatever they have remembered of it and try to come to terms with what it means. Often, in our initial conversations, clients ask me about my own experiences. Have I ever experienced a close encounter? Do I have first-hand knowledge of an ET presence on or around planet Earth? In that context, I am happy, for what it's worth, to share my own story, even if it appears to be a hodgepodge of vague and fragmentary memories. Even now, as I share these flashes and glimpses with you, like crumbs along on the pathway, I am putting the picture together for myself. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if even I want to go where these crumbs are leading. And that is the end of chapter 13. Peace and blessings to you all,